It's been a year. Actually, close to 2. But who's counting? You know, when I started this series, I promised myself that I'd share the amazing adventures I'd have in what I thought would be my new life. But I've been putting this off for so long, I figured those who really cared like to know the basic questions. Who, what, when, where, why, and maybe how. I didn't want this to be anything special, with me recording with any high-tech cameras or microphones. I just wanted it to be simply you and me. So, here I go. Well, I went to art school expecting too much. It wasn't exactly what I imagined. It wasn't a place where I'd be surrounded by other creators like me. It wasn't exactly a place for creators like me. Apparently, I was too commercial-like. But I got through it. The first month was exciting and nerve-wracking. I mean, I was this girl who never left Sacramento, living in San Francisco on her own. Although, it really wasn't a place where I could belong. With every week that passed, I started to realize that I couldn't belong. Because every single day started to become a nightmare. My hopes and dreams were burned in front of me, and the people around me became distant blurs. Well, every rich kid who would skip class, do any drugs they can find on the street, or drink any alcohol that was laying around. I mean, it was only 60 grand their parents were paying for them to waste. But it disgusted me. Just how much fun they had and how little they cared. I would put my heart and soul into every little project. I would spend days and nights brainstorming, drawing a million storyboards, and creating. But in the end, I was displayed on the same pedestal as them, as those who spent 5 minutes outside of a classroom, spinning a camera around like an idiot. And then I'll watch them go into the classroom, explaining how it was this abstract piece that represented their internal struggle at school. What a joke. Then there were the friends I tried to make. And let me confess, I actually felt so lonely. I tried so hard to fit in with these people, but I truly couldn't. I couldn't relate to the subjects and interests they bring up, and I was always outside of the circle. The one they've already closed up before I even got a chance. Yes, there are a few gems that I will never let go, but I knew deep down inside I couldn't win their hearts like my roommate did. My roommate was lovable to others and maybe everyone outside of our room, but I don't want to go into depth into that rabbit hole, but I will say, when I opened the door to enough smiling faces looking for her, I started to feel completely invisible. Like I said, she was loved and wanted. I wasn't. But the one who hurt me the most still haunts me to this day. It was what I called the critique class. We had to bring in our portfolio, the one we submitted to apply. I showed my best work from high school and shared it proudly in front of a room full of quiet strangers. He didn't say anything for a while and just stared at the screen with darting eyes. But when he spoke, his words tore me apart. Why are you here? Your ideas aren't original. Anyone could have done that. Dreams of Hollywood? Forget it. You're nothing. And you're not an artist. I cried for weeks. I was never the same after that. I lost my inspirations and my purpose as a creator. I mean, my whole life I had no intentions of going into the art world. I just found it as a cute hobby. Then I got into DMA where I worked so hard. In those 4 years, I developed as an artist and learned where my passions were. That was with a camera in one hand and a storyboard in the other. So I took the risk and applied to a bunch of art schools. And then I got a full ride scholarship to this place. It made me feel like I had a purpose. I felt that this was where I was supposed to be. I thought I was special enough. Just enough to be recognized for my hard work and maybe talent. But with those simple words from a professor, someone you're supposed to look up to, I fell apart. And I lost myself. But I knew I could not stay. It was toxic. Not only the filthy city, or the numbness to the ambulance sirens, or the normality of the homelessness, but it was the classrooms where the headlights gave me delusions. The anger I built up from watching everyone around me, the critiques that would repeat over and over in my head, the loneliness that picked at my self-esteem. And maybe worst of all, I started to develop what many adults label as the imaginary disease. The type of disease we aren't allowed to talk about. Depression. I had many of the symptoms, but I think the one that gave me the wake-up call was the night I tried to kill myself. But seconds before trying, I grew angry. I was so fed up. I was tired of how the world worked. I hated that I had to feel this miserable, while everyone else was wasting their time being dumb or stupid. I hated that if I had left, I would just be another suicidal art student. I hated that if I had left, that no one in that place would remember who I was. So, I dropped everything. I was gonna finish that year and leave that toxic place. And I was gonna be remembered. I left even though I met the loves of my life. Created the touching stories that left marks in people's hearts. Left memories that will be cherished. But I left so much happier. I'm back home. I'm living with my parents, going to school as a communications major. I found a job as a waitress at a ramen house where I'm constantly stressed and overwhelmed and maybe have too many nightmares about working. But the pay is decent. I can afford things that I've always wanted and get it myself. I could buy my mom stuff that she likes. But overall, my life has become simpler. I'm still lost. I don't know where I'm going, whether I've made the right decision, but honestly, I don't regret it at all. I've met amazing people who inspire me and are my biggest fans. They left a huge mark in my soul. I've learned a lot. I grew up a lot. I got to experience things I didn't imagine I could. I don't have much in my life except school, work, and occasionally friends and family. But honestly, I feel like I'm living my best life. Will I continue my passion for film? Maybe. In the summer, I won a film festival. The last film I made at art school. I didn't tell anyone or share it on social media. I didn't really know how to take it. But, damn, it seemed like a huge sign for me to not give up. Maybe it's the world's way of screaming for me. Who knows? But we'll see where life takes me. Because no matter how many storyboards I make, they always end up changing. I may not have been an artist in my professor's eyes, but I'm always a creator. I always continue making, creating. I will always be part of the art world. It's where I'm meant to be. It's where I belong. Whether you guys get to see my work all over the world or it's just hanging up on a wall somewhere, this is my true happiness. I thank you for listening and waiting patiently. It took a lot of time and maybe a little courage. I don't mean to attack anyone. If anything, this is more for me. This is a message to say I'm okay and that I'm moving on with my life. And those who know that I love them, you know who you are. And those who didn't know how much you affected my life, well, you were there. It's not your fault. But I'm here, happily, and more alive than ever. So I thank all of you for being there. Yours forevermore.